coffee shop smelled of roasted beans, burnt milk, and cheap cologne, the kind men wear when they're trying to hide what they lack. Anne Lee stood still, quiet, controlled, invisible. Her fingers adjusted the strap of her worn satchel, brushing lightly against the cold titanium of an encrypted comms unit hidden inside. Across the room, laughter, sharp, ugly, hollow. Calvin Starr, dressed in wealth, surrounded by people who borrowed his confidence just to feel important. To them, Anne was nothing, a ghost, a failed chapter, a woman whose life ended the moment he walked away. But outside, 12 elite bodyguards stood in silent formation, and they didn't see a victim. They saw the shadow matriarch, a woman who controlled more capital than the city's central bank. Well, if it isn't the ghost of Christmas past. Calvin's voice cut through the room. Cruel, practiced. Anne didn't look up, didn't react, didn't break. I see independence is treating you exactly how I predicted. He continued, smirking. You look comfortable. Laughter followed. Cheap, predictable. Calvin pulled out a crisp bill, dropped it beside her coffee. Get yourself something with a label. Consider it a pity tip. A pause. Then, thank you, Calvin. Soft, fragile, deceptive, because beneath the counter, her thumb pressed against a hidden biometric sensor. A red alert flashed. Target acquired. Market manipulation authorized. Calvin walked away smiling, thinking he just bought her silence. He didn't realize he had just signed the first page of his own collapse. 28 minutes later, Anne Lee no longer existed. Sector 9. The air smelled of jet fuel, steel, and power. Real power. The sweatshirt was gone, replaced by a black PVC trench coat that moved like liquid shadow under industrial lights. Her posture changed. Her presence sharpened. She stepped forward, and the entire hangar fell silent. 100 elite soldiers, men who feared nothing, bowed, all of them, in perfect synchronization. At the end of the formation stood Samuel James, the man the underworld whispered about, the weapon, but even he stepped aside. They're ready, he said, low, respectful. Anne didn't smile, didn't hesitate. Let him enjoy his celebration, she said calmly. By the main course, I want his credit lines empty. Samuel smiled. Dangerous, because he understood the truth. He wasn't in control. He never was. He was the weapon. And Anne, she decided where it struck. Across the city, Calvin leaned back in his chair, drinking victory, making calls, destroying every opportunity Anne could ever have. Flag her name, he ordered. She doesn't get hired anywhere. He smiled, thinking he had erased her. Behind him, a screen flickered. Numbers dropped. 4%. 60 million gone. Quietly, effortlessly, back in the war room. Anne watched, Calm, focused. He's losing control, she said. Samuel stepped closer. Do you want me to end it? A pause. No. Her eyes stayed on the screen. A cornered rat is boring. A beat. I want to see how high he jumps when the floor starts burning. The boardroom was cold, precise, controlled, and sat quietly at the table. Small, forgettable, exactly how they saw her. Then the doors slammed open. Calvin walked in. I thought I smelled something cheap. He tore her resume in half, letting the pieces fall over her like dust. I own this building, he said, leaning close. I own every career in it. Laughter, but Anne didn't move, didn't react, didn't blink. She wasn't listening. She was calculating, cataloging every face, every weakness, every liability, until her eyes stopped on Kangdi, the only man not laughing, the only man who recognized her. Fear, real fear, because he had seen her before, not as Anne, but as something else, something far more dangerous. That is not a mouse, Kangdi whispered later. That's the shadow matriarch. Calvin laughed, dismissed it, mocked it, and signed his fate again. That night, the gala, gold crystal power. Calvin walked in like a king. Then he saw her, and, in emerald silk, radiant, untouchable, to him still a mistake. Remove her, he ordered security. But they didn't touch her. They protected her, formed a wall around her, pushed him back. Step back, sir. And just like that, power shifted, without noise, without effort, and walked past him, like he never existed. Moments later, dark hallway, 4 assassins emerged, weapons ready. And Lee, you die tonight. Calvin watched from the shadows, waiting for her to break. She didn't. She moved. Fast, precise, surgical. One strike, another, controlled destruction. 60 seconds later, silence, 4 men down. Anne stood alone, untouched, unbothered. Sector clear, she said calmly. Tell Samuel I'm bored. The summit, the final stage. Calvin stood ready to sign the biggest deal of his life. Then the doors opened. Power walked in. Samuel James. And behind him, and not hidden, not quiet, not small, dominant. Please welcome Chairwoman Anne Lee James. Silence, absolute. Calvin's glass slipped, shattered, just like his empire, and sat at the head of the table. Calm, in control. You were saying something about leadership, Calvin. A pause. Please continue. 48 hours later, everything was gone. The empire, the money, the illusion. Calvin sat alone, back where it started, the same cafe. But this time, he was the ghost. And Anne, she was the storm that erased him.